We welcome those of you who have joined in person, some from out of the city, and so we're glad that you're here as well as our Zoom audience here and across the state. Our program today is on freedom schools. And many of you, when you came in the door, said, I love freedom schools. I want to come and learn more about it. And isn't that exciting, especially for the three of you sitting up here to tell us all about it. This Freedom Schools is a powerful and impactful initiative that started more than 30 years ago by the Children's Defense Fund to specifically address concerns about summer reading loss and broaden learning to include family, also in civic and social engagement. We have seats at the front. Please join us. I'm going to bring everybody up here. Our panel today collectively have very, very deep roots in the Freedom School movement here in Winston-Salem and actually beyond. So we're going to learn a lot from them today. Before I briefly introduce them, let me just mention a few housekeeping matters. We do try to keep this meeting to an hour, and so we'll try to move along as much as we can. But feel free to get cookies and drink outside. We have moved our sessions here to the community room in our Wellness and Community Center. Several of you liked this location when we met here in October, and better technology and a more intimate setting, and so we hope this works for you as well. Just a brief commercial for our Wellness and Community Center, or WCC as we call it. This is a part of Knollwood that is open to the community. We encourage use of this room and other opportunities here. There's a walking track that's open all through the week, and so you're welcome to join us. So if you're new to this space, please check it out before you leave today. And take part in Dale Anderson's chair yoga at 1:30.
1:30, across the hall.
So we're delighted to have our three guests here today to give us more information about Freedom Schools. So I'm going to briefly introduce each of them, and then we'll have a brief time at the end for questions, which will be moderated by Dean Clifford, another one of our planning team members. First, Rayshawn Meekins is currently the assistant principal at Cook Literacy Model School. And she was first introduced to Freedom Schools in 2017 when she served as a site coordinator at the Kimberly Park Elementary Freedom School. And she later became the project director and just completed her 3-year term as an Ella Baker trainer, which is a major leadership part of the Freedom Schools and Children's Defense Fund. And I know I'm excited to hear what that means, because I think it's a pretty big opportunity. She's going to tell us more about the history of the Freedom School movement. She's been an educator for more than a dozen years and is licensed all the spectrum in terms of birth to kindergarten, elementary ed, and special ed. And she's a believer that all students can learn, and it's up to educators to discover how students learn and to meet them where they are. Dr. Danny Parker Moore is an assistant professor of multicultural education and director of the Schools, Education, and Society minor at Wake Forest University. She teaches a number of undergraduate and graduate courses in multicultural education, community engagement, and educational psychology. She focuses her research interest a lot around the Freedom School experience on educational inequities and opportunities for blending learning and social and civic action. She's going to talk a lot about that today. She's the executive director of the Wake Forest University Freedom School and has recently received a major grant to study the impact of Freedom Schools and exactly what that means, not only for the students, their families, but interestingly, for the student leader interns, SLIs. I see heads nodding, SLIs, who are the young people, college students, and others who are part of the leadership, but then they're learning as well. So excited to hear about that. And finally, but not finally, Reverend Russell May is a Moravian minister here with involvement in several area churches. And in 2010 or so, he felt called to start a new type of ministry that was one focused less on religious services and more on serving the community. It's called Anthony's Plot. We have seats up here in the front. Please march down the aisle. It's called Anthony's Plot and is in the former parsonage of Trinity Moravian Church in the Sunnyside neighborhood. Anthony's Plot has a variety of services meeting individual and community needs and really teaching people how to be neighbors and neighborly in every aspect. He's currently in the role of organizational and administrator of the Winston-Salem Freedom Schools, working very closely with our other panelists and with other organizations and community groups, such as Action for Equity and other groups. he will talk to us today about the continued growth of Freedom Schools. In just a few years that I've been aware of it, I've seen it grow in a number of sites, and more are planned for next year. So he will talk about how they're working together and sharing resources. So we look forward to learning from our panel. As I said, hold your questions. We'll have your questions. People on Zoom can put their questions in the chat, and we'll be sure and address those as well. So now join me in welcoming our panel to today about Freedom Schools. Let's go.
So, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, no. Wait a minute. Hold on. So, one thing you're going to learn about me is I'm very animated. And when you're part of Freedom Schools, you have to be very energetic and animated. So, those of you, and I see a couple of you who have experienced Freedom School, I'm going to try that again. And if you can help our audience to feel welcome by doing our good morning chant. Okay, so let's start over. Good morning, everyone. G-O-O-D-M-O-R-N-I-N-G. Good morning. Good morning. G-O-O-D-M-O-R-N-I-N-G. Good morning. 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 I know you all like thank you. So I know everybody's like, what in the world? One part of Freedom Schools is something we have every morning. It's called Harambe. And it is a Swahili word that means let's pull together. And this is a time where we get the scholars in the communal area, and we share chants. We have different people from the community to come and read aloud and read different books to our scholars, and just learn about the different people within our community. And during that time, we do different chants, which one of them is the good morning chant. And we have other chants that the scholars really enjoy and love. Okay? So anytime you visit a Freedom School site, just be ready. All right? Do we have the presentation? Okay. All right, give me 2 seconds. All right. Yep, thank you. Technology works today. All right, yes, all right. So, I'm going to speak, but I have visuals because sometimes I can talk fast. If I talk fast, just say slow down, Rashawn, and I'll slow down. So, Freedom Schools stem from the Freedom Summer of 1964 in Mississippi, okay? During this time, people were fighting for voter registration rights, and so forth. I'm sorry, y'all. There we go. Okay. So, the Children's Defense Fund was founded by Marion Wright Edelman, and it stemmed from the Civil Rights Movement. And in 1969, Ms. Edelman began the Washington Research Project, which was a public interest law firm that monitored federal programs for low-income families, okay? And then in 1973, the Children's Defense Fund, I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous, and I don't know why. Can I put this in? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is making me nervous.
They're not gonna be able to hear them.
No, they're not gonna hear you.
No problem. I apologize. I forgot we have a Zoom audience. The Children's Defense Fund Leave No Child Behind mission was to ensure that every child has a healthy start, a head start, a fair start, and a safe start, and a moral start in life, and successful passage to adulthood with the help of families and communities. So Ms. Edelman, she was really big with children and children's rights. And so in 1990, the Children's Defense Fund's Black Community Crusade for Children, the BCC campaign, was launched, okay? And then the first official CDF Freedom School site opened in Bakersfield, South Carolina, and Kansas City, Missouri in 1995, okay? So even though Freedom School was birthed in 1995, the Children's Defense Fund stemmed back from the Civil Rights Movement. All right, so more about what is Freedom Schools. Everybody know what's that? So the CDF Freedom School and the general framework, it is a culturally affirming, literacy-based reading program. It's a 6-week summer program in which we develop a love for reading. So no, we don't teach reading. However, we teach kids to love reading. And most of the time with scholars, if you get that motivation, oh, they will learn. So that is one of the main goals of Freedom School is to inspire kids to love reading, okay? It is catered to K-12 students. It is broken down into levels. So our level 1 are K2 babies, kindergarten through 2nd grade. Level 2 is 3rd through 5th grade. Level 3 is 6th through 9th grade. And level 4 are our high school scholars, okay? All right. Make sure I don't miss anything. So, another thing with Freedom Schools is it has 6 weekly things. And all of the things deal with I can make a difference. So during week 1, we talk about and read books about how scholars can make a difference within themselves. Week 2, we talk about how scholars can make a difference within their families, and we read different books about how they can make a difference within their families. Week 3 talks about how they can make a difference within their communities. Also during week 3, we usually have a National Day of Social Action where we come together as Winston-Salem Freedom Schools, and we have a program where we target an issue within our communities. So last year was gun violence. We focused on gun violence. In previous years, we focused on voter registration. In other years, we focused on childhood hunger. So that's when we all come together as Winston-Salem Freedom Schools, and we come up with ways to teach scholars how to be social activists about issues within their communities. Week 4 is how I can make a difference in my country. Week 5 is I can make a difference in my world. And week 6 is how I can make a difference with hope, education, and action, okay? So with these themes, we have different books that we read each day. We read a different book each day depending on the level you're in. And scholars learn how they can make a difference in those areas. Check, check?
Check, check.
All right. Okay. Freedom School also believes in an intergenerational leadership model. So, Ms. O'Rourke had mentioned about our servant leader interns, our SLIs. These are normally college-age students who are our teachers during Freedom School. So, they come to training, national training, and they get trained on CDF's curriculum. CDF has a whole curriculum that they provide to us to teach their model, okay? And our college students are the ones who facilitate that for our scholars, all right? The ratio is a 10-to-1 ratio. So you're not sitting in the classroom with 20 to 25, 30 scholars. No. 1 to 10 ratio. There's one SLI per 10 scholars. And most of our sites here in Winston have at least 50 scholars, but a lot of our sites have 60, 100 scholars. Okay? A site coordinator is the person who supervises the SLI. So they have a site coordinator who goes around and they do evaluations. So some of you may be educators within the room, you know how principals come in and do observations, feedback. The site coordinator actually goes into the classroom and observes and gives the SLI feedback throughout the 6 weeks. So it's not like we just leave them up to it. No, we monitor that and we give guidance throughout the summer. Each site also has a project director and an executive director. Now, a project director is the person who does everything from field trips to logistics to transportation to meals and so forth. And then the executive director works hand in hand with the project director to find funding and things like that to support the site. All right? Now, the curriculum in which CDF provides to us is not just some willy-nilly curriculum. No ma'am, no sir. It is actually a research-based integrated reading curriculum. We call it the IRC. So anytime you hear IRC, that is a curriculum in which we use, and it's called the integrated reading curriculum, okay? CDF provides training for all staff, from the executive director to the project director to the site coordinator to the SLIs. They provide strategic training in that curriculum. All national training is conducted at Haley Farm in Clinton, Tennessee, and at the Convention Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. So we all travel at least once a year to go and get this training. Now, a day in the life of Freedom School Scholars. What do they do all day? Is it just another summer program? And it is not. So, during the day, they have breakfast. Then we have Harambe, which we will need readers throughout the sites this summer. So even if you just want to come in and see what it's like, sign up to be a reader at one of our sites, okay? All right, shameless plug. Then we have 2.5 hours of that integrated reading curriculum. I like to tell people this is the meat and potatoes of Freedom School. That IRC is the meat and potatoes. It is protected time. We don't skim from it. It is 2.5 hours of this reading curriculum. Now, it is broken up by a morning break, so it's not straight through. However, 2.5 full hours of that IRC. Then we have Dear Time, which means drop everything and read. They get to read books that they're interested in. So not required books that we use during the lessons, but books that they may be interested in that we have access to within our sites. Then they have lunch, and then we have afternoon activities. Now I'm gonna put a pin in that because I'm gonna come back. Then we have dismissal, and then each day we have a staff daily debrief. This is where we do blows and grows from the day, and we really get input from our SLIs about what went well and what did not, so that we can fix those things right then. Now let's go back to these afternoon activities. Speaking from the Kimberly Park Elementary Site where I've served most of my tenure, we have done things from bucket drumming. We've teamed up with other community organizations like the Audubon Society to do different activities outside. We've done taught our scholars about different sports like field hockey. What's some of the other activities you all have done at your sites?
A lot of STEM stuff.
STEM stuff, yes. So we teamed it up with another organization this summer where we did various STEM and STEAM activities with our scholars and different things like that. So what we're trying to do is expose our scholars to different things that they may not otherwise get exposed to during the school year for those afternoon activities. Now, I mentioned Harambe. Everything with CDF Freedom Schools is intentional. We don't just sing and do cheers and chant for no reason. They have academic skills reinforced within the components. So during Harambe, we have read aloud guests, we have a motivational song, cheers and chant, recognitions, moment of silence, and announcements. That's like our program for Harambe. But the reinforced academic skills is that repetition, that call and response, spelling, gross motor skills, because we do have movements that go with our songs, fine motor skills, listening, sequencing, visual learning, auditory learning, and kinesthetic learning. So what about the integrated curriculum and the books in which we read? Russ has a couple of books up here displayed for you. But in these books, they teach about real individuals who make a difference, okay? And they include developmentally appropriate strategies to teach our scholars about real life situations. So we have books about bullying, cultural differences, homelessness, unstable family life, and self-identification and worth. So the scholars are not just reading to be reading. They're reading about situations that may truly affect them, and they're processing through the lessons that we teach on how to deal with some of the things that they may be dealing with as a scholar. So during the curriculum, some activities that we do book discussions, critical thinking activities, cooperative group activities and presentations. We talk about conflict resolution and social action. So it's not sit and get. We don't just sit and get, we don't just lecture and go. The whole structure of our classrooms, we sit in circle to foster that sense of community. And we don't just do worksheets. We never have worksheets. The kids are always doing cooperative group activities. They're either in partners or they're in groups. So they're not doing individual things. So I know you're like, oh my goodness, you have kindergartners in a classroom with second graders? Yes, we do. Because those kindergartners look up to those second graders. And if we have some second graders who may be on a kindergarten level, they don't feel intimidated. They feel welcome within their community. Okay, I talked about afternoon activities. Other highlights of a day in the life of a CDF Freedom School. We also have weekly book distributions. So the books that CDF sends us for the curriculum, the scholars get to take them home and keep them to build their own personal libraries. So we don't keep the books, we keep some of them because some of them are site books for our site libraries. However, they go home with the scholars. Weekly parent meetings. It is a requirement of CDF Freedom Schools to have a weekly parent meeting. This is where we bring in community organizations to talk to our parents about what their needs are so that the parents are aware of things that can support them within the community. We have something called finale, which at the end, our scholars come together and do a huge presentation, not only for our parents, but for our community to show what they have learned throughout the 6 weeks in Freedom School. And then our National Day of Social Action that I talked about, our scholars go out and show how they can appropriately advocate for things that they need within their communities. And that is the end of my part of what CDF Freedom Schools is. And I thank you all for listening, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. David Parker.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm so excited to talk to you about Freedom School because this has been my life's work. I started out as a servant leader intern in graduate school. And I did not know what I was getting into, but it was life-changing. From that point, I got to be enriched by this community and meet so many people geared towards trying to figure out how can we bring it here in Winston. So it's been like 8-9 years of trying to, build this momentum, and this is where we are today. So I'm really thankful. We got funded by the Spencer Foundation this summer. I found out y'all was screaming in my library. He called me. I was like, "What? Are you serious?" This was the third time of trying to get this funding because I believe so much in this. So when they called us, I was just crying. I was so excited. But the point of the research really is to show what we already know and what we've seen over these last years. And for me as an academic, being able to have published research around Freedom School it's gonna make the momentum continue. Our ultimate goal is really to have more publications so that the work can be in something called What Works Clearinghouse. It is a US education website that has everything. So if you're a teacher or educator and you want to work on reading skills or you want to work on any type of thing with kids, you can put it in this website and then it'll show you published research to support that work. So that's our ultimate goal. So our study is called Something Inside So Strong, Advancing Black and Hispanic Students Reading, Self-Efficacy, Leadership Development, and Community Engagement through CDF Freedom School's Culturally Sustaining Academic Program. So this is our project theory of change. My colleagues and I got this grant. So my colleague is Nelson Brunstein. He was here at Wake Forest with us. He's now a professor at University of Florida. And the project that Spencer has funded is called a research practice partnership. And so what the idea is that academic institutions partner with nonprofits to create change through research that's been funded. So our third partner is Dr. Crystal Clemens Moore, and she's the National Director of Freedom Schools at CDF. So this is our change. So we really believe that through the servant leader intergenerational model that we can, and having culturally sustaining pedagogy that through the parts of Freedom School will be able to create change throughout your community. So these are the parts that Rashawn went over, are the high quality academic achievement, intergenerational servant leader development, civic engagement, parent and family development, nutrition and mental health. And so once these things are in place, and parents are connected to community resources, this is where learning and growth and development happens for the community. So this is what we believe is our change process. And so what I basically said, it's an equity focus, it's freedom schools, civic engagement, it's so many parts that connect to make this work for everyone. One key thing is that, because the culturally sustaining part is so important, that's what we tend to hear in research that's so important for kids. So culturally sustaining pedagogy requires that the support of young people in sustaining the cultural and linguistic competence of their communities while simultaneously offering access to dominant cultural competence. We also know that from Sims Bishop, books are mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. So what does that mean? The child sees themselves in the mirror. The book gives them that opportunity, what Russ has right here. It's also a window to allow you to look out and see what some opportunities are. But this sliding glass door part, the book allows you to walk through and you can join into another environment. So the book is and these books are what's so important to Freedom School and what's important to the kids learning. So these are the research questions that we proposed to Spencer. To what degree does the Children's Defense Fund Freedom School training enhance instructors' culturally sustaining pedagogical practices and self-advocacy? To what factors and experience do teachers describe their growth in culturally sustaining pedagogy? So for this question, our kind of hypothesis is once they go out to the Haley Farm, once they go to Tennessee and they learn how to implement this curriculum, what happens once they come back? Because for us in teacher education world, this is a part that we've been trying to work on. Like, you might get a semester on culturally relevant training, you might not get anything. Some teachers, depending on where they were in their years of training, these are not topics you would talk about, right? So our hypothesis really is CDF is the way. So if we were able to get more teachers and educators trained in that way, it would make a difference in the classrooms, right? The second question we have is to what degree do K through 6 students gain in literacy, reading through self-efficacy, and community engagement and attending CDF Freedom School in the summer? How do literacy, reading, self-efficacy, and community engagement interrelate over time? Our third research question is what research practice resources and storytelling are needed to enhance Freedom School's reach in supporting community partners and local districts' efforts to enhance culturally responsive pedagogy. So to answer that question, partly what we have done is once the research is done, we've partnered with WFDD. And so they're gonna do stories and vignettes on getting out what we learned from this story. And so we know through listening to public radio, being able to access multimedia, that this might have a broader reach as well. The efficacy part of reading is if you feel confident in what is happening in the book. So my students will tell you, I'm always telling stories about my own little kids. And so my son Landon is 6 and in 1st grade, and his teacher sent home a thing. So when we read with him at night, they want us to say, what is happening in this story? What do you think the character is going through? There's a series of questions to help them understand, okay, they get what's happening in the book as opposed to just reading the words. So we want to also understand with this study, do the kids feel confident in reading these books and how do they demonstrate that? All right, so the methods are, we're taking college students, which are the SLIs, and we're gonna have them take a survey before they leave, right when they come back from Freedom School training. Then we do interviews with them, and then we're gonna do another survey with parents over 3 years. So we got the funding in the middle of the summer, so I was able to collect just a little bit of data, and then next summer we'll start back with the surveys. They're also gonna take something that is called the culturally responsive teaching self-efficacy scale. We kind of modified it a little bit, but it's really informative to helping us understand how do teachers feel about teaching culturally responsive teaching. I've been to plenty of professional developments where people feel like they don't quite know, or they don't feel comfortable, or that, and so we gotta work on that as a training tool, right? And so, they'll take a post-program survey, and then they'll be asked to how they feel now, and then re-rate themselves after the summer. All right, so then there's gonna be an hour to hour 15 minutes of semi-structured interviews. And what that means really is I have some research questions, but then also in qualitative research, you can allow for if somebody's talking in the research to share more. So like if I don't have that question typed out per se, I'll ask it, but then sometimes it leads to more information. So they'll do that, and then there's a protocol that will share like the purpose of the study, and this has all been approved through our Office of Research at Wake Forest. And then I really wanted them to tell us more about the civil rights movement, because that is really in the process of training in Tennessee. They really help us understand. We don't get to understanding why there's social inequity in schools, in public schools, until we understand the civil rights movement and we see where we are today. Because we're not far off. There's a reason why many of these programs and interventions and things are still happening, and a lot of this is grounded in civil rights. So this is what they try to teach us, the young people, because many of them don't know what's happening. And then we learn about their own schooling processes. So what was school like for them? What were some of the things they went through? And then how do you feel about delivering this kind of pedagogy? Then the other part of understanding the research is the measures. So every summer we do something called the basic reading inventory, and every site takes part in that. We have testers that come, and what we're looking at is the instructional reading level. What that is if I'm reading a book to you and then I ask you some questions about that, what do you understand about the book afterwards, right? We also look at what words they know. So the whole point of this is that they also don't lose in the summer. So if a kid comes in at 5th grade, first month, we want them to stay at 5th grade first month. We don't want them to go back to 4th grade by the end of the 6 weeks. Because that is also a problem where young people go off for the summer and there's no engagement. So if you think about the young people in your life, what did you do in the summer? Did you go on vacation? Did you go to museums and sports and things like that? Those are all forms of engagement that allow you not to come back sliding down the hill when school starts. I will say over the last 7 years, the basic reading inventory that's been done, when we come back from getting those results, it's as much as 12 months have been gained in instructional reading levels. We've had 5 months, 6 months, 8 months at all these different sites, which is huge because that means they did not stay where they were, they actually grew over the summer. And then the reading efficacy scale, that's what we're gonna also use in this study. All right, so I wanted to share with you, I've done some interviews. So this is Tanya, these names are not real names, but Tanya is a second-year teacher and she participated as a servant leader intern. So her main job is being a teacher, and she did this for the summer. And so when I asked her really kind of what she learned from the summer, she said, I was able to really let the kids see themselves in the book. You know, oftentimes in school, we really don't have the time to be like, well, how did you feel about that? If that was you, what would you have done? How many times have you been able to make a plan? I think really it was more getting to hit the heart more versus like, we gotta get the standard done. Did you get the standard? Okay, just keep moving. It was like, how would you feel, or that you have done this? Could you have been that person? So when we talked some more, she was saying in her experience of being at SLI this summer, it helped her think about how she would take this back to her own classroom as a teacher. We had an undergraduate second-year student. So I asked them, you know, what did they learn? And they said, well, for sure, Harambe, I think really is a great way to start the day. You don't realize in the moment, but it's actually like uplifting you and letting you know like your cause, because you're repeating words back to yourself, especially like the song, like the motivational song. You wouldn't necessarily like to think something inside so strong, but like when you sit and listen to the lyrics, I'm powerful, I'm more than just who I think I am. So this undergrad was really sharing how she wished she would have had Freedom School as in her lifetime. And so that Harambe, I encourage everybody to come to Harambe. You will be in tears. Like I have met many adults that sat in the back of the auditorium just crying. I will give you one example. This summer, right when they passed the affirmative action, it was so powerful to come in that room the next day to see these kids saying something inside so strong, and they're doing that. And I'm just like, I hope they remember that when there's a world that is trying to basically say, no, you're not. And so these little babies, in this interview, she was saying how powerful that is. And we know that as adults, what affirmations do for you, right? All right, here's my last interview. This is also an undergraduate student, a white young woman who participated as an SLI. And she said, the biggest thing I think I learned was just that importance of culturally relevant curriculum. I think I just learned a lot. The kids learned a lot. The environment that you can create of like inclusivity and acceptance through culturally relevant curriculum and diverse cultural curriculum, that's huge because we are so taboo about certain topics in society right now. Like, how are we supposed to fix certain things if we can't even talk about them, you know? And so I think just introducing different cultures through books, like something as small as children's books, that's the difference between, you know, like a leader of our future leaders, like they're going to create for our future. Lay the platform. So I think just giving them a voice to speak like these things and just understand and have compassion. I learned, I didn't realize how I thought it was just, you know, so that the kids would read books. And it turned out to be more interesting. Like, it's way bigger than that too. So yeah, it was really awesome, and I learned from that too. So this young woman, she was just so touched to be a part of the program, and just her experiences of growing up in Colorado in a very white environment to coming here. She was just saying how this really changed it for her. So Freedom School for us is the way, and this research is really going to allow us. So next summer we'll be able to do a full year of data collection. And then the next summer, that will be our last year of data collection. And then the process for us as researchers to take all that and begin to be able to disseminate that information through WFDD and various academic journals. So thank you.
Just in case my part's laborious, I'm actually gonna pass around these books, so you have something to look at while I'm, where do I, you can pass them all out. You can just in around if you like. Would you mind if I set this down? Is that okay? Good. And, all right. I also would like to say that it's a real honor to be here and to be a part of this. And just personally for me, it's a real honor to be able to be part of the Freedom School movement. Step into that space with a lot of a growing level of humility. So you're yeah. When you enter into Haley Farm. Actually, let me say something first. If you were to go on the CBF's website, you would see something along the lines of this as a summation of Freedom School. It's a summer and an after school literacy program. And this program is provided for communities that often have barriers to access. You see something like that, okay? And so we're going to hit on that, but I want to say something here before we keep going in that direction about the local Freedom Schools. And that's to say, we've talked about Haley Farm a couple of times. That's the Clinton, Tennessee, where we go for training. And when you get to Haley Farm, one of the sacred spaces, and there are many sacred spaces there, is the Langston Hughes Library. And it's no surprise because of the connection between Alex Haley and Langston Hughes, and both of their connections with with Black community and naming the deep losses and the deeper resiliency of Black folk in America. And Langston Hughes gives voice, I think, to the entire ethos of the CDF Freedom Schools in his poem, For You, where he says, and just bring this in, to sit and dream, to sit and read, to sit and learn about the world outside our world of here and now, our problem world. To dream of vast horizons of the soul through dreams made whole, unfettered, free. Help me. All you who are dreamers too, help me to make our world new. I reach out my dreams to you. And I mention this now, I bring this particular poem now as I'm tasked with sharing with you all the organization of the Freedom Schools here in Winston-Salem, because when you hear the voice of Winston Hughes in this poem, and when we lift up the names of Mary Wright Edelman was an attorney before getting involved in all this mischief making, was an attorney working with Dr. King on the People's Campaign, and Ella Baker, when you start talking like Ella Baker, that radical matriarch of the freedom movement, was the embodiment of servant leadership, where we get the name servant leader in church. When you start using those names, you cannot come away thinking that we are talking simply about another reading program. We're talking about righting a ship that has been off course for too long. So the method of Freedom Schools is literacy for good reason, but the implications are empowerment and transformation for scholars, for their families, for their communities, and for our communities as a whole, just to be clear. Now, the start of the Winston-Salem Freedom Schools goes back several years and involves many ongoing supporters, some of whom are in this room. In 2017, you could have found the CDF Freedom Schools at one of three sites, Kimberly Park, Wake Forest, and the Sunnyside Freedom School site. In the fall of 2019, there was a report, some of you all might remember this, there was a report in the Winston-Salem Journal that showed that the Winston-Salem County Schools school system had 8 schools with failing institutional grades. You see these come up periodically, there was one recently. Each school was within each of these failing schools, I keep using quotes because I don't like that word, and the narrative around it. But each of these schools was within a community predominantly of color. And the state of North Carolina alluded to a takeover of some of these schools as a response to it. As a member of this community, I'm sure you can understand the reaction that some of us had to rally around our communities and their schools and to not appreciate the state's overtures. So that fall, we decided to try to start a new freedom school near or within each of those schools.
It's on the timer.
Gotcha. Delayed by COVID in 2021, there were an additional 6 Freedom School sites which opened in Winston-Salem. One that served Old Town Elementary, one serving Philo Hill Middle, one serving Forest Park Elementary, one serving Winston-Salem Preparatory Academy, one serving Ashley Academy, and then the Turn Freedom School, which is nearest to the Ibraham and Mineral Springs schools. This expansion, by the way, could not have been possible without the passionate support of Woody Kleiner. For the past 3 years, we've operated 9 Freedom School sites here in Winston-Salem, serving an average of 450 scholars per summer. Our demographics from 2023 are that they are mostly Black students. They're almost 100% students of color. Most of our numbers reflect public school students. And the K through 5, which is our level 1s and 2s, that's about 350 scholars. And middle school and high school, we do all the way up here in Winston-Salem, we had about 130 scholars in middle school and high school. So the Winston-Salem Freedom Schools is an organization. We use that both to describe the location, but it's also the name of our organization. And our organization is a collective and collaborative organization. What that means is that we have a single fundraising goal for all of our Freedom School sites. Action for Equity serves as our fiscal agent. They are also our equity agent, and I'll say more about that in a minute. All donations go through the Winston-Salem Freedom Schools account, and they're distributed appropriately to each site for their programming, for their staffing, and for much of their material needs, but not all, and I'll come back to that too. Each site runs about $65,000 per 50 scholars, which we mentioned. 50 is our standard kind of starting block number. That sounds like a lot of money until you break it down. And so for a 6-week program, 5 days a week, a school day length of time, the impact that we're talking about is $1,300 per scholar. I assure you, as you look at your summer expenses and those in your congregations and communities and what they do with their children, this is the best value in town. Being collaborative and collective means that we share ideas, we share best practices, and we share our resources to make sure every site thrives in operation. And finally, being collaborative means we try things to make sure we don't get disconnected from one another. We are developing a new tool which we think will be helpful not only for Freedom Schools, but also for other organizations and for schools in our district, which is an equity inventory tool. This tool helps our sites to articulate their assets, their connections and networks, their material items, their donations, the facilities they use, the transportation they have access to, their volunteer corps, the information they know, the news that they hear about, the kind of grapevine info, the talents they have in-house. We look at all of that, we name it all, and then we look at each site and make sure those that seemingly have less assets either have a sharing relationship with our other sites or are able to access additional community support or financial support as needed. We're committed to making sure that every Winston-Salem Freedom School site resembles the equitable schools that we want here in our city through our district. What does growth in the Winston-Salem Freedom Schools mean? To begin with, it means more access. We want to see increasing access. We're working to responsibly expand the opportunities for students to participate in Freedom. Next year we'll grow the number of scholars served as some of our sites will increase a little bit. And we will grow in the number of sites in Winston-Salem. Cook Elementary, where Rachel Meekins is at. We'll have a Freedom School site for the first time in 2024. Growth is also about how we increase the impact and the measurable pieces. You've seen some of the record data, the basic reading inventory and things like that. Well, the summary for 2023, this just came out. The summary for 2023 for the national CDF Freedom Schools is that the instructional reading levels, re-emphasizing these things, increased at almost every site. 85% either maintained or gained in instructional reading. No summer learning loss. Maintaining, remember, is actually gaining. Status quo is falling behind, okay? 85% nationally. On average, nationally, instructional reading levels increased by 9 months. Locally, and of course this came out, we've got 7 of our 9 sites have reported their findings so far for Winston-Salem Freedom Schools. Here locally, we maintained or improved 80%. 3 of our sites actually saw an increase of over 90%. These things can change for a lot of reasons, but it's just nice to know what the kind of high marks are. 80% is our average. Instructional reading level improvement was greater than 10 months. And here locally, and this is historically true for CDF Freedom Schools, the greatest increase was among middle school. And is most often focused on raising middle school African-American males. We average with our middle school programs, by the way, 18.5 of reading level increase. The number of books read on average with our different sites is about 16 in the course of the program. Remember some of the higher level groups don't get through a week. I mean, a book a day, they're working books long, so it takes a little longer. And the enthusiasm
to return to freedom schools by scholars and parents,
over 90%
by scholars, and 100% by parents in the surveys.
The Winston-Salem
Freedom School
organization
has developed some really strong partnerships.
And in particular,
I want to highlight the partnership with
City
the City of Winston-Salem that has provided
financial
support and understand this is an important part of their work to do some restorative work in our communities.
The
Winston-Salem Police Department is an emerging one. This is really we're kind of being careful as we approach this, but here's the deal. Chief Penn, our new chief of police, really believes that you're not going to do good community work by passing out popsicles. And so he's committed to being able to fund the programs that will do the work. And he believes in the Freedom School program. Sorry, did I say that? Okay. But the Winston-Salem Freedom Schools is really proud, especially of the partnership we have with the school district, the Winston-Salem Forsyth County school system.
We're not interested
in starting charter schools out here. We know the complications and issues around that.
We're interested
in being able to address inequities in our systems and to bring about some healing in those spaces, and helping our district to be able to get to those places.
So that's why
their support, and it has been that way with Dr. Harrison, and now especially so with Tristan McManus, it has been important to us. Because this is more than a reading program.
We know that
it can help the goals of our district around reading and gains that are needed. But we also know that the Freedom School program allows our district to foster and put into practice the things that it will take to get to an equitable educational system. You saw it here. We are doing culturally relevant curriculum in the classroom. We're doing a culturally relevant pedagogy, which means we are centering those children who are often marginalized when the material does not. We all learn by building on the things we already know and have learned and have picked up from our communities of origin. And when we tell somebody that their communities of origin are a non-factor here, except for a particular month or a particular unique exotic opportunity, then they don't have the building piece that the other students have. And so when we center them in the class through the materials and through saying, you know something about this, they become co-creators. These students become co-creators in the learning environment. This is what needs to happen in our schools, and we're getting a chance to show what it looks like in our Freedom School classrooms.
We have
a culturally affirming ethos environment in everything we do. We are restorative. We are circles, not just in shape, but in the ways we try to keep everybody connected to one another. And in the classroom and not removed from the classroom where learning cannot take place.
We are
culturally affirming and empowering in our family engagement. This notion that we're going to see an increase in family participation in the education and academics of our children and our students.
Acting like
they're part of they're the main problem. They're the main issue around the learning of their children it's in conflict with the goal. You can't approach it that way and achieve the goal you want, which is increased parent participation. The parents are the source of resilience and thriving and creativity. So at Freedom Schools, we meet every single week with these families, and we look to one another in a circle fashion. The answer lies here, y'all. What do we need to connect ourselves to be able to move forward together? What answers are already in our midst? So we treat one another in our family meetings the same way we treat the children in the classrooms.
And then social
emotional learning, you've heard about that, but it's just important to say that we are committed to practicing social emotional learning, which we know that our school district is too, and we're kind of showing what some of those components look like, most particularly with Harambe, where we don't tell these kids to come in and just get in a seat and start learning, they like to sit and get, but we're checking in with one another, we're knowing that we're coming in with a level of baggage, and we need to do some healing work before we can do some homework, you know.
By the way, I think
this one quote from a young scholar summarizes everything you've heard today. This scholar said, and this is from the national CDF.
We have the brain. We have the mind. We're smart. We're strong.
We can do anything.
We learned that
in Freedom School. We can do it.
We can do it if we put
mind
our mind to it.
There are ways
There are
that
ways that you can get
involved.
involved.
You can do that.
You can do that if you are part of the community group or a congregation
that is
not connected with a Freedom School site. We want to connect you with a Freedom School site.
That becomes
a really powerful kind of grouping, like family clustering,
that
allows our sites to articulate exactly what they need,
and for our
community to try to respond as they are able.
If you're part of
a group that's not directly connected with the site, we would love to connect you.
Those donations will include material
things, but also opportunities. You may know of connections and opportunities for these after activities. Thank you, sorry.
He's too
many words over.
We're always looking
for corporate partnerships because those things can allow us to access additional resources. Also, we believe that our corporate entities here in Winston-Salem owe something to our communities, and we want to see them be participants in this restorative work. And there's always financial support that is needed. I mentioned the amount, so you know we're in the work of fundraising at all times.
I want
to be clear
as I close. We are talking about with Freedom School.
We are talking about issues that are created by the long-term implications of policy decisions and resource sharing approaches that has created the present inequity.
That has been
backed by data, including local data, testing,
and
corresponding narratives, which consistently have placed the problem on the children and the families who are harmed by these systems to begin with.
This is a
movement to correct those wrongs. Freedom Schools here in Winston-Salem is a movement to correct those wrongs.
So
it requires of us more.
It requires
of us a shift
in our resources, in our policy making, and in our relationship to the narrative makers here locally. So I named some of the ways you can be involved briefly, but I'm going to push on it and say, please look at how you can distribute resources in a way that creates greater equity and isn't creating more charity models. Please look at who you have influence with and the calls you can make and the conversations you can have to move our schools closer to the places that they deserve to be. And I believe that you can do that. I really do. Right here in this room, there's potential for that. And that it will get us going in the right direction for these children, for these scholars. We know that we can make a difference, like we know that they can make a difference. Thanks.
I don't know about the rest of it, but I'm sort of sitting here saying, wow. So I don't know, we don't have a lot of time, but do you have a burning question? Something that they said that touched off at you. I wonder about what needs to happen next. My first question is, what's your long-term goal? How many sites do we need to have? Where do we need to go?
All right, you want to answer that? Or you want me to? Okay, so how many sites do we need to have?
We need to have, I said one in every school.
That's a hefty goal.
However, at least
a few in
every community. And I say that because at my site, we cater mostly to K-2. But a lot of my scholars who started in Freedom School in kindergarten are now fifth graders. And I have to send them across town to go to a middle school site because we don't have a middle school site on my side of town.
So at least
one level on each side of town so that our scholars can have access to it as they grow. Because we do have scholars who start in kindergarten and they want to continue through high school.
What kind of response are you getting from the corporate and the foundation world?
Good support.
I think our foundations locally have done a lot of work to figure out how they don't just do
everything, a
little bit of everything. And so there's some focus on particular foundations, and we're trying to articulate like how we fit into those strong agendas that they have. But generally, there's a lot of understanding, especially after this many years, that this is accomplishing the things that these foundations would like to see happen. So good support. I think the corporate support is one that we're still would like to see that area.
questions? Other questions?
I don't want to be the only one that asks questions.
I'm curious, this is based on a traditional school calendar. And that's, I guess, most of what Winston-Salem has. There are counties in the state who use year-round calendars and other modified calendars. Is there any examples that you know of where freedom schools have been done in a track out camp situation where like 2 or 3 weeks, and then 2 or 3 weeks, and 2 or 3 weeks, like where it would be done in a different model than the traditional?
Well, not in a
non-traditional way.
However,
However,
they did
pilot last year an after-school program, in which my school piloted the Freedom School after-school program.
And
it's not the same stuff as the summertime. So if they went in summertime, it was different in the after-school program. It did not get enough traction then. It has not fallen off. However, that is something that would be nice to explore, coming from an administrative standpoint and looking at the curriculum. It would be something to explore. Yeah.
So not now.
Not now, but
We'll start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, $65,000 per site and 10 sites is, what's the, I don't want to make an incorrect assumption, but it's $650,000 for summer for all 10 sites. So what is the total budget for all 10 sites?
So the question is, what's the total budget for all 10 sites?
So we're fundraising $700,000, considering that our annual approach, that includes no executive leadership. The Winston-Salem Freedom Schools, kind of does really well with our, it's kind of a flat model, and so a lot of our site leaders, folks up here, and folks that are in your seats here, help to lead us as an organization. So if we were to change that model, it would require a different budget, but that $700,000 runs the program, is what we're fundraising for the program.
What is the process for selecting students, whether they have or have not?
So she asked the
So she asked the question of what's the
process
process for selecting students for Freedom School.
It's different
It's different at each site.
However,
I
I know at my
site,
because I am a
because I am a
school-based
school-based site at Kimberly Park, my previous sites.
We did not want
to be in competition with the school district
as it pertains to
summer school.
So we did
took
recommendations
from teachers
to see
what students would truly benefit from, say, the traditional summer school, which some students do benefit,
or who
would benefit from more enrichment or more motivation in Freedom School. So at my site, and I can speak for we reached out to teachers
and asked them
who would be great candidates for this program.
We kind of did a
presentation about what Freedom School was.
And
Kimberly Park is built in their culture because it's been there so long.
So everybody
knows what Freedom School is at Kimberly Park. And we would ask the teachers to recommend those scholars. And of course, we grandfather the scholars who had been in it from kindergarten. But we look at that so that we don't compete, with the district on their summer school program. That's how we do it.
At Wake Forest, we started out with Cook Elementary School and families that work for Bud Group, Aramark, or food service, janitorial staff, or staff members at Wake. And when we first started, we had enough applications for 5 or 6 freedom schools. And every year we still get people that want to come, and we do not have enough space based on funding. So I will say at this point, pretty much the kids that come either with us from that first year. Some of them are in high school now, but it's pretty much just been the same group that went through. And then additionally it's been staff. It may be a situation where a sibling be there so it's been first come, first serve. We definitely all of the sites, we could have multiple sites based on the interest.
It's a good question. We've got mostly two different ways of approaching it. So you've heard a school-based way and a community-based way. We have 3 community sites, what we would call community sites. And so they're looking at their connections, their community, and bringing in folks, whether that's geographical or situational or whatever. The 6 and now going to be 7 school sites work directly with the staff at the school to identify students that fit into a really good kind of range for us, which is that they're not students that need remedial or one-on-one support during the summer, and they're also not like way above grade level. So when they're a little bit behind grade level and don't need one-on-one support, that's a sweet spot for us. And the school identifies those and helps get them registered directly into those sites. But like Danny said, at every one of our sites individually, and then through our open enrollment through the website, we have last year we had about 150 applications for scholars that we didn't have a place to connect them with. So we know the need and the want is there.
We had I know we're out, but I know we had a question back there. Let's take that, the last question, and feel free to come up and answer individual questions after.
I just wanted to know, what was your selection process for the teachers in the program?
So as Winston-Salem, we broadcast. So campus, in the community, within the schools. I know within the schools, I ask my teachers. That's the first place I go. I ask my staff at my school. You're interested? Or as an administrator, if I see somebody with that potential, I can't explain. There is a freedom school spirit. But if I see a teacher that has that, and I know that they can get beyond the rigidness of teaching during the school year. They can get beyond that and explore other options with the summer opportunity. I target my within my school first. And then as Winston-Salem schools, we advertise to college students. We have a partnership with Winston-Salem State. We advertise through them. Wake Forest, we target the colleges within this community to recruit our SLIs. Russ, can you please talk about some of the SLIs you've had from different states? Tell them how you recruit them in the past.
I don't know. But I think you named it, but I think you named it really but I just want to say, if you got somebody in mind, send them to us.
So we advertise. So even if we put it on, let's say, LinkedIn, we have had people in different states to apply, let's say, to do an interview on Zoom, and then they'll come here and stay for those 6 weeks and do that. So we need college students or motivated people who are about this movement. And that's the key thing. And that's one thing that I forgot to tell about. But when we go to training, they teach you about the history of Children's Defense Fund and the history of freedom schools and the civil rights movement. So if you get excited about that, then freedom school is where we need you so that you can help us continue this movement with our scholars.
Okay, can we thank them again?